أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير ثم أما بعد والحمد لله. We resume with our recitation of the Hadith from the Kitab Riyadus Saliheen. Last week we stopped up to a particular point which was talking about the virtues of fasting on some of these special days like Arafah and like Ashura, which is coming inshallah in Muharram. And then there are some Hadith on the chapters of Ramadan, of I'tikaf and so on. What I want to do inshallah is jump over past those, because we've just passed Ramadan and I'tikaf and many of these hadith you've heard recently. And what I hope to do inshallah is, I don't think we'll be finishing the entire or the remainder of the book before next Ramadan. I don't think so, because to cover this much up until here, which is maybe 2/3 was since 2018. So I'm assuming maybe by next Ramadan we would have probably progressed a bit more, but definitely not finished the entire book. And so inshallah we can revise and return to that section for Ramadan and I'tikaf and those hadith. Once again, we've covered a lot of it during this Ramadan and pre-Ramadan. In our lesson of hadith before Ramadan, we spoke about the virtues of Ramadan and so on. So today I want to go jump over to chapter number 239, which begins with hadith number 1366. And it says, virtues of prayer during times of lawlessness and chaos. Lawlessness and chaos, the virtues of praying and being committed to Allah at such a difficult time of fitna. عن معقل بن يسار رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم العبادة في الهرج كهجرة إلي. معقل ibn Yasar, may Allah be pleased with him, one of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم, has said, the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم himself has said, the reward of worshipping Allah at times of trials and tribulations, where people are not remembering Allah, where people are in a state of fitna, the reward of worshipping or of worship performed at times of trials is equal in reward to coming to me for immigration. You know, the Sahaba, they have different stations and statuses of their value and their importance and their rank. And the highest ranking Sahaba are those who accepted Islam earliest. Sabiqun al-awwalun, the earliest of them. Like Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu arda, Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, Khadija radiyallahu anha wa ardaha, and others that came into Islam early. They have the highest rank. And then another ranking are those who believed in Islam, before the Hijrah. And then there are those who actually done Hijrah with the Prophet ﷺ to Medina. And then from them after that there is Badr, there is Uhud, those who are with the Prophet ﷺ. Meaning, the more committed you were, the longer you were a Muslim, the more senior you are in Islam, means you are higher in rank. So now the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is telling us that if we are committed to Allah's worship at times of difficulty, trials and tribulations, of hajr, of harj, of people being distracted, at times like this especially, where people are immersed and consumed by their desires. Desires. Everything is about what makes you happy. If it makes you happy, go for it. Regardless of whether it's moral, whether it matches with ethics, whether it's matches to do with the interests of the greater human population or not. If it makes you happy, if it makes you feel good, nothing should stop you. So there is this ongoing sort of push towards liberalism and consumerism and this chasing of the shahwa and feeding of the nafs, the self, the inner self, the greedy self, the bad self. And so the Prophet Muhammad is saying that the one that can worship Allah at times like this, where there is so much fitna, then the reward is like coming to the Prophet for hijrah, subhanAllah. It's a huge reward, because the Sahaba who held the rank of hijrah, muhajirin, they were very high in status. It's just one chapter in this, one hadith in this chapter. Next chapter, 240, says, virtues of benevolence and of fair dealings in business. fairness in measurement and prohibition of shortchanging, and virtues of offering relief to both the rich and the poor, and to grant remission. This is all about ihsan, about taking it easy, about being fair, but also letting go of some of your rights sometimes, to be kind, to be generous. And as is quite normal for Imam Abu Zakaria Sharaf al-Nawawi, who was the one that compiled this book, Imam al-Nawawi, he brings some ayat at the beginning of a chapter where they are relevant. So he says, قال الله تعالى وَمَا تَفْعَلُوا مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِهِ عَلِيمٌ. Any good deed you do, Allah knows it. Any good deed you do, whether it's big or small, anything, Allah knows it. So sometimes it could be something as simple as, for example, I'll give you a simple example. Imagine you're in a situation where you want to give some money to a poor person, okay? And you want to give them, say for example, whichever country you may be in, this country, another country, you're back home, and you have a choice of giving them a 20, which is a new fresh note, or a 20, which is a used note. It's still a note, right? But you know that if you give someone a fresh note, it makes them more happy. There's a slight level of speciality. Fresh note has a special feeling to it. Everyone knows that. Whichever country you are in, it's true. So in your mind, you're thinking, subhanAllah, this person is very poor, they're living a very difficult life. All I can afford to give them right now is a 20 pound, rupee, taka, junay, riyal, whatever you give, dinar, dirham. So instead of giving them the old 20, I'm going to give them a nice fresh 20. This small changing, because you want them to feel a bit more happy, wallahi, Allah knows it. And Allah will reward you for it. Because you've meant well. Hadith, the Prophet Muhammad said, لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا. Do not belittle any good deed, even if it is merely just smiling at your brother when you see them. We say smiling is a sunnah. What's the point of smiling at someone? What good deed is it? It's a ma'roof. Every smiling is ma'roof, is a sadaqah, is a charity. So Allah is saying, وَمَا تَفْعَلُوا مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِهِ عَلِيمٌ. Allah knows every good deed that you do. Allah says also in the Quran, وَيَا قَوْمِ أَوْفُوا الْمِكْيَالَ وَالْمِيزَانَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. That Allah is addressing humanity on the tongue of one of the Anbiya, that, O my nation, he was saying to his people, fulfill people's scales and give them their fair due, بالقسط, with justice and fairness. وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. Do not, reduce from people's haqq. People love doing that. Any opportunity to eat away from a person's rights, their haqq, they will try. Whether it be in the workplace, whether it be in a marriage, whether it be among brothers, among sisters, among siblings, it happens, husband and wife. If I can consume some of their rights, withhold some of their rights, you feel like your nafs and your desires and your shaitan inside you that's whispering to you, makes you feel like I've gained, but you haven't gained anything. I know people that steal Tesco bags. Well, I don't know them, but I've heard people do that. I wouldn't want to know a person like that. I've heard they were like, you know what, I'm not going to pay for that. But it's a 20p, 30p bag. You'll pay 50 quid, but for that 20p you'll nick it. Some people will do that. But this is theft. This is stealing. This is, as big as Tesco may be, it's still their haqq. You can't justify that in any way. So this is a small matter. Fulfill, give people their due rights. And this carries on between husband and wife a lot of the times. And the wife will feel extra clever, extra smart, because sometimes, she is maybe withholding some of the rights of the husband. And the husband may feel even more like, oh, in glee, I'm happy. Oh, I've managed to withhold some of my wife's rights. I'm so clever. Look at me. Well done to you. Tap on the back. What have you gained? Nothing. Allah knows that's the person's right, and you have withheld it. Allah will ask you for it. Allah will ask you about it. And don't forget that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, in the biggest sermon, a person would prepare for a big sermon and prepare the most important information. If you were told you're going to go and address the United Nations Council, that's your job. Tomorrow you got a lecture. You will be up preparing the most important thing you want to say in life. And the Prophet ﷺ, one of the biggest addresses, or the biggest address, was that day in Arafah, in his Hajjatul Wida. He only done one Hajj. But this Hajj was the farewell Hajj and the farewell sermon. And in that, one of the key themes, key lessons was fulfill people's rights. You have rights over your women. They have rights over you. Fulfill them. Biggest crowd, 100,000 Sahaba. And he says, carry on, convey this message on my behalf. And we're so easy. Every day or every other day at least I'll have a complaint. Imam, can I speak to you? Marriage problem. My husband doesn't give me my right. My wife doesn't give me my right. She doesn't do this. And it's people are doing this as if it's a joke. Be careful. وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. Don't take away from people that which they are, do what that's their haqq. Allah says, وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ. Though it's meant in the business exchange, a context, it's applicable for all rights. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ. Woe and curse be upon those who take their rights but give little to others. They mess up the scales. الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ يُخْسِرُونَ. When they want to take from other people, they're like, oh, give me more, give me more. I don't want, give me good mangoes. Give me more. That's if they're buying. But if they're selling, they will try to get rid of the faulty product at first. They'll put them up forward and try to get rid of the faulty ones so that they can keep the good ones for themselves. They can sell it later. أَلَا يَظُنُّ أُولَٰئِكَ أَنَّهُمْ مَبْعُوثُونَ لِيَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ. Do they not think that they're going to be brought back to life and brought in front of Allah, who will ask about all of these small details? يَوْمَ يَقُومُ النَّاسُ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. When all of nas will stand in front of Allah. Hadith, the first hadith is 1367 عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رجلا أتى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يتقاضاه فأغلظ له فهم به أصحابه فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم دعوه فإن لصاحب الحق مقالة ثم قال أعطوه سنا مثل سنه قالوا يا رسول الله لا نجد إلا أمثل من سنه قال أعطوه فإن خيركم أحسنكم قضاء. Sayyidina Abu Hurairah, who is the narrator of the largest number of ahadith from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, he narrates that a man demanded of the Prophet to be repaid a loan, and he was harsh to him. A man had some haqq with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a loan. And he came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, instead of asking very nicely and politely, as he should do because he's the Prophet of Allah, and he should be kind anyway, but he was harsh. Give me my right back. It was harsh. So his companions, oh, how dare you speak to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam like that? They're about to grab him. Yes, you want to ask for your right, but have some adab. Speak nicely, speak softly. So the Sahaba were about to grab him and attack him out of their ghira and their level of protectiveness for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, leave him, let him shout, let him say it loudly, let him say it harshly, because the creditor is entitled to make a demand. Creditor, he lent me something, he has a right to demand it. Yes, maybe the uslub could have been better, but he has a right to that demand. And then he said, give him a camel from the same age as that which is due for him. Meaning, I owe him a camel, give him a camel similar age, give him back. They said, we find a better camel older than it. Meaning, we can give him a camel, but it's not going to be the same value, it's going to be more expensive. A better camel. He, Prophet ﷺ said, then buy it and give it to him. Verily the best of you is the one who is the best in discharging his obligations, repayment of loans. Meaning, if you can, even if it is better, give better, no problem. So when you give back, when you borrow some money from someone, when you borrow anything from someone, most cases, people will give it in a worse case, in a worse situation. You borrow someone's car, the guy gave you on half tank. By the time you get it back, or he gets it back, it's going to be on reserve. Tires are curbed, maybe a puncture here and there. I'm sorry, bro, I don't know what happened. That's how it was. But this is his haqq. The Prophet ﷺ, according to this standard, you should be actually giving it back in a better state. If it was half wash, you should get a nice inside out clean for him. Give him a full tank, say, thank you very much. Here's your right back, and I've given it back to you in a better state than I took it. That's what the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us in this hadith. So these are things that we need to, because Muslim, mashallah, of course, Islam is amantu billahi wa malaik, you believe and you practice, but these are aspects of our characteristics and our mu'amalat and our mu'asharat and our dealings that we are very negligent of, and yet it is connected to being a good Muslim. How do you think Islam spread throughout the entire world? Because you can't force Islam. How do you think Islam went to Indonesia? How do you have millions of Muslims in China? How do we as Silatis and Bangladeshis in our million strong Muslims, and no one forced us? Islam was not spread by the sword. You can't. Yes, lands and countries were defended where they needed to be by the sword and etc. But you can't la ikraha fi din. You can't force someone to become. How do you think we became Muslim? Why did people flock into Islam? It's because of this. It's because of what they saw, character of the tujjar, of the businessmen. And we know that the business people are not even the best example of Muslims. Businessmen, tradesmen are not supposed to be the best example. The best example of Muslims are like, for example, the ulama, the saliheen, the mujtahideen, the fuqaha, the a'imma. They're like the elite example of Muslims. Now, if you contemplate, most of these countries that accepted Islam was through trade, meaning businessmen went there. Meaning the standard of akhlaq and adab and muamalat and muasharat, the principles and the etiquettes of trading was so good that countries and nations accepted Islam. Now imagine the status of the ulama and the saliheen. It's really to contemplate. We carry Islam on our sleeves, as they say. You're a Muslim. You're apparently a Muslim. Everyone knows you're a Muslim. So therefore, your da'wah, which is most effective, is through your dealing, your muamalat and your muasharat, how you trade. And that's why, businessmen have such a high status and level in Islam. That's why so many of the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ were businessmen. And that's why Allah encourages in the Quran to be businessmen, to be entrepreneurs. We spoke about that in a khutbah. Allah encourages in the Quran. Allah gives special dispensation, special, discounts for business people. Allah said in the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, make your salahs a bit. Consider the fact that you have businessmen behind you. They have stuff to get to. They have transactions to return to. Allah says, after your Salatul Jum'ah is finished, go out there and seek the provisions of Allah. Be a businessman, be an entrepreneur, because that is one of the best ways to bring goodness to people, to impact a person's life firsthand, to give da'wah, to contact, to reach out. Subhanallah. And Allah blessed the Quraysh with business. لِإِيلَافِ قُرَيْشِ إِيلَافِهِمْ رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ. That's one of the things that made them grounded throughout the entire world. And the people of Sham as well as Yemen knew them because of this. Before that, they were starving. They were dying of famine and droughts. But that's what made them come to a good level. Nonetheless, so we see that, subhanAllah, this is extremely important, that we fulfill the rights of those who we are in transactions with. We should give the best example. On time, not delaying payments, not delaying without notice and so on. This is all bad. عن جابر رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال رحم الله رجلا سمحا إذا باع وإذا اشترى وإذا اقتضى. Jabir radiallahu anhu warda narrated, the Prophet Muhammad said, may Allah show mercy to a man who adopts a kind attitude when he sells, buys and demands repayment of loans. When he buys, when he sells, he's kind, it's okay. I can't afford, this is all I have, can you give me a discount? You can give a discount. Your margin, mashallah, allows you. Your margins, for example, 50%, 100%, 200%, whatever it is, margins for certain products are ridiculously high. So in that margin you have scope for discount. And if the person's struggling, what's wrong? You can, especially if it is your own business. If you're of course employed by somebody, you can't. There are limitations. But if it is your business, you can give someone a discount. Why shouldn't you? Because Allah will show mercy upon you. Because Allah, the Prophet ﷺ has made dua that Allah shows mercy upon a person who's kind when they sell. You're kind to someone when they sell. You have the ability to be kind. Be kind, Allah will be kind to you. Ar-Rahimuna yarhamuhumur Rahman. Those who are kind to others, Allah is kind to them. Irhamu man fil ardi, yarhamkum man fis sama. Show mercy to those who are in this dunya, Allah will show, or the one who is in the heavens will show mercy to you. So may Allah have mercy upon the person who is kind and generous and soft in their dealings when it comes to selling. Also when it comes to buying. You're buying from a poor person. This is very ajib, isn't it? Very ajib. We are happy to go into, mashallah, a very big brand, Hugo Boss and Gucci. You'll pay the full price. You'll pay because you don't have a choice. You have to pay it. You'll pay 600, 700,000 pounds, but then you're going to be haggling with a poor man who's trying to make a basic living in a marketplace somewhere. Shame on us, especially when it comes to when you go to third world countries sometimes. You spend thousands of pounds on tickets, but you're trying to get yourself a good deal from a poor guy. You can see that this is where he lives and this is where he works. What happens to us? We forget. Yes, you have a right to haggle, but you also know your situation. For you, £10 is nothing. For that person, it changes their whole month. So these things you should be very careful and try to achieve that ihsan, that reward from Allah. When you buy, be kind. If you can afford to be kind. Give a tip. If you can, if the person needs it, why not? Bring happiness to another person's life. One of the biggest rewards and good deeds in the sight of Allah is that you bring happiness to another believer. Through a smile, whatever it is, you bring happiness to them. Whatever shar'i halal way it is, you bring happiness to their heart. That's one of the most beloved actions to Allah. And when it comes to repayment of loans, you owe someone money, repayment of loans, you should be extremely good. You should be on time. You should be kind. You should thank that person. Our arrogance is you're going to borrow someone money from someone and then you're going to delay and then you're not going to be able to thank them. Qard hasana. This is someone giving you a good loan. You know, they've saved you. They've saved you from a lot of harm. You should pay on time, pay early. If you can't, but get in touch. What is this? How is it? You know, all of us, we know that if someone asks you for a loan, you're like, you know what, that's the last thing I want to do because I don't want to damage a relationship with someone. Why is it like that? Because you know that the person's going to be slacking. They're going to delay. They're going to call them. He'll call you when he needs the loan, £1,000. Akhi, mashallah, you're a good friend. We've been together for such a long time. You know, akhi, you know me, bro. I don't delay this kind of payments. I'm there, bro. It's all fine. But when it comes to payback time, he's not going to pick up his phone. What's that about? So this is not the dua of the Prophet Muhammad. He's saying Allah will have mercy on the person who's good when it comes to repayment of loans. Yes. And if you've borrowed money to someone and you know that they need it, you don't. You're just getting it back because it looks good on your bank balance. You want to round up that figure. You're 5k short of being, 100k for example, or whatever, 20k, 10k. You're 500. You want it back because you just want that round figure on your app. So you're demanding, but you know this guy actually needs that money. And dragging it out of his pocket right now will put him into a lot of difficulty. Khalas, take it easy, man. Take it easy, give it a bit of time. Give him a bit of time. Or if you can, then just forgive it, just leave it all together. If it's a small amount, if it's a negligible amount, if you can, then Allah's given you. Allah will give you barakah. Make the intention of sadaqah, and He will come back to you anyway. وعن أبي قتادة رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول من سره أن ينجيه الله من كرب يوم القيامة فلينفس عن معسر أو يضع عنه. Abu Qatada radiallahu anhu arda narrated the Prophet Muhammad said, he who likes, if you want Allah to deliver you from the calamities of the day of resurrection, if you want Allah to save you from the difficulties of Yawm al-Qiyamah, who doesn't want that? All of us want that. If you want Allah to save you from calculating all of your deeds, from questioning you for all of your deeds and all of your money, where it came from, where it went, these are difficulties of Yawm al-Qiyamah. From the difficulties of having to stand under the sun for years, all of those difficulties, if you want Allah to relieve you from the difficulties of Yawm al-Qiyamah, then do you know how to acquire that? Dua, of course, but a way to acquire that, let them or let him either give respite to a debtor or grant him remission of loans when he is strained in circumstance. What we just said right now, if someone's really struggling, and if you can afford to, khalas, waive that debt, khalas, it's okay, don't pay him back, man. Pay him back when you can. Or pay, if you can't, khalas. A sign of a good heart, of a pure heart, of a cleansed heart, is that you have generosity. And a sign of greatness, and a sign of, that you're a great person, and your heart is great, and you have an open heart, and you have a confidence, and you have tawakkul on Allah, is that you don't take accountability for small numbers. Khalas, it's fine. Allah's, some people, the richer they become, the more calculated on the pennies they are. Why is that? Allah is giving you without count. So why are you counting? Yes, you should be clever and you should be thoughtful and all of that's fine. You should strategize, you should manage your risks. I get that. But when it comes to others, and being kind to people, khalas, Allah's giving you, take it easy. It's a sign of your tawakkul, your contentment with Allah's provision, your greatness in your heart. The tib and the pureness of your heart is also is indicated to by this kind of generosity. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال كان رجل يداين الناس وكان يقول لفتاه إذا أتيت معسرا فتجاوز عنه لعل الله أن يتجاوز عنا فلقي الله فتجاوز عنه. Sayyidina Abu Hurairah رضي الله عنه narrated that the Prophet Muhammad said, this is a story that the Prophet is narrating to us, that there was a person who used to loan money to people. There was a person who used to give money to people for loan because they need it. And he used to have a worker, a slave. And he would give him, he was like his collector. He would go around and say, your debt is due, give it back. But he gave me instruction as a principle. He said, when you find a person that's in a difficult situation, then show leniency. Meaning don't demand. If you can see the person's poor and they're struggling, show leniency so that Allah may show leniency towards us and may overlook our faults. Take it easy on them so that Allah takes it easy on us. And the next part is just amazing. So, when that man who was showing leniency met Allah, Allah forgave him. He was kind to people, he was easy with people, Allah was easy with him. You're difficult with people, nitty-gritty, looking for opportunities to fight and just argue and just being, bickering, and Allah can do that to you. For every word He can hold you to account. Well, Allah can say, khalas, it's okay. You're easy, you're easygoing, you're generous, you're open-hearted. Allah can do the exact same way. The way you treat others, Allah can treat you. So be wary of that. عن أبي مسعود البدري قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم حوسب رجل ممن كان قبلكم فلم يوجد له من الخير شيء إلا أنه كان يخالط الناس وكان موسرا وكان يأمر غلمانه أن يتجاوزوا عن المعسر قال الله تعالى قال الله جل جلاله نحن أحق بذلك منه تجاوزوا عنه. Abu Mas'ud al-Badri radiallahu anhu narrated, the Prophet Muhammad said, a person from the people among you lived before you, a similar story or same story from the previous one. A person from among the people who lived before you was called to account by Allah on the day of resurrection. And there was no good deed found for that person. He's a sinner. No good deed found for that person in his credit except that he was a rich man and he had a lot of financial dealings with people. And he had commanded his slaves to show leniency to those who were strained in their circumstances. So Allah, upon receiving this servant on Yawm al-Qiyamah, says, Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, He says, I am more entitled to the attribute of generosity and kindness and leniency, so I forgive him. Subhanallah, amazing. Because what it is, we live at a time when everyone demands my rights, I didn't get my rights. But your responsibilities you don't care about. Your fulfilling of other person's rights you don't care about. Subhanallah. And this is our example. This is our Imam, our Rasulullah, our teacher. This is what he taught us. What an amazing, subhanAllah. And this is the beauty of learning hadith, that you see in practice what the Quran taught us, what the Sunnah taught us, how the Prophet practiced it. It's amazing. And so I advise every single time, if any of us hasn't yet read the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad, you must learn about your Prophet. How are you going to love your Prophet if you don't know about him? And without loving the Prophet then your iman is not complete. Yes, from the rights of your iman is that you love the Prophet. Yes, so we have to be, inshallah, learning more about the seerah and the hadith of the Prophet and the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad. عن حذيفة رضي الله عنه قال أتي الله تعالى بعبد من عباده آتاه الله مالا فقال له ماذا عملت في الدنيا قال ولا يكتمون الله حديثا قال يا ربي آتيتني مالك فكنت أبايع الناس وكان من خلقي الجواز فكنت أتيسر على موسر وأنظر المعسر فقال الله تعالى أنا أحق بذاك وبذا منك تجاوزوا عن عبدي فقال عقبة بن عامر وأبو مسعود الأنصاري رضي الله عنهما هكذا سمعناه من في رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Hudhayfa رضي الله عنه أرضاه narrates that the Prophet Muhammad has said, a servant of Allah whom he had endowed, whom Allah had given him wealth, will be brought before him on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and Allah will ask him, what have you done in the world? They cannot conceal anything from Allah. So he will say, oh my Lord, you endowed me with your wealth, you gave me some of you made me rich, you gave me wealth. I used to enter into transactions with people, and it was my nature to be lenient to those who were insolvent, and I used to give respite to those who were in strange circumstances, whereupon Allah will say, I am more entitled than you to do this. So forgive my servant just like he used to forgive those who were in difficult situations from those whom he used to do transactions with. Uqba ibn Amir and Abu Mas'ud al-Ansari radiyallahu anhuma wa ardahuma, they also confirmed, the narrators of the previous hadith, that we heard it too like this from the mouth of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Next hadith 1373 عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من أنظر معسرا أو وضع له أظله الله يوم القيامة تحت ظل عرشه يوم لا ظل إلا ظل. Sayyidina Abu Hurairah رضي الله عنه وأرضاه says, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the one who gives respite to someone who is in strained circumstances or grants him remission, i.e. says khalas, give it later, or says it's forgiven completely, Allah will shelter that person in his shade, in the shade of his throne on Yawm al-Qiyamah, on the day on which there is no other shade. So we know about the 7 people that are shaded, right? Rajul Imamun Adil, the fair Imam, the ruler, and the 7 that are listed in that hadith. In this hadith we're learning about another category of those who are also shaded under Allah's arsh on Yawm al-Qiyamah, are those who are easy in their transactions and give respite to people. So when you can do so, and even more so with people who are near and kin to you, your relatives. Yes, your brothers, your sisters, your parents, your children, your wife. If they borrow money of you, khalas, take it easy. Give them some time. Because they have more of a right for your good khuluq, for your good character. عن جابر رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم اشترى منه بعيرا فوزن له فأرجح. Jabir radiallahu anhu warda narrated the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam purchased a camel from me and weighed me more than its price. He gave me more than what it was supposed to. And there's a beautiful story behind that actually. The camel of Sayyidina Jabir ibn Abdullah. And I give this example all the time, and I'll remind you of that story. Jabir radiallahu anhu warda was a young man from the Sahaba. He was a young man. His father was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was in the battles with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He passed away. Jabir radiallahu anhu had a lot of sisters, no brothers. So one day the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sees Jabir and he's all colored up. You can see like smiling, colored up and etc. And so he says, what's the news, Jabir? Is there any good news? Looks like you got married. He said, yes, Ya Rasulullah, I got married. He said, did you get married to a young woman like your age or an older woman? This goes to show from here the fact that the Prophet's question is normal. It's normal to get married to someone older. It's normal to get married to someone the same age. It's normal to get married to someone who's younger, as long as they are, of course, of legal age. There's nothing wrong with that. These are cultural aspects, we put it in. And we cannot stress that enough, because so many people struggle because of that. You find a good sister, she's all good, all the boxes are ticked, but someone will say, but she's older than you. So what? So what? The Prophet ﷺ got married to Khadija and she was much older. Like, this is not theory, this is reality. This should be our life. This is our principles. This is our sharia. This is our method. So if someone comes to me and says, Akhi, I found a sister, she's older than me, I will say, Akhi, go ahead. As long as you can convince your family as well, because we should try and get everyone together, because it's an occasion of unity and not of division. But these kind of things we need to overcome. MashaAllah, our elders, they have, of course, certain cultures and norms that they used to, but you are, MashaAllah, next generation. So don't be stuck in the ways of the old which have no Islamic and Shari'i backing. Same thing with getting married to a widower who's been married before, a divorcee. What's the problem? If they are a good person, and if they have a good track record of being a good person, then these are not issues. These are not issues. As hard as it may be for people to receive and to hear. Someone's a divorcee, someone's a widower, someone has children. They want to get married again. No big deal. In the society of the Prophet Muhammad, this is completely normal. Look at this Sayyidina Jabir, one of the most beloved people of the Prophet Muhammad. He says, did you get married to a young woman or an older woman? He says, I got married to an older woman. He says, why? Why didn't you get married to a younger woman like your age? You could have enjoyed her company and she could have enjoyed your company. The actual word he used, I don't want people to misunderstand, he said, so you could play with her and she could play with you. Meaning you could have, like, your banter and your jokes and etc. You'd be similar age. But listen to the hikmah and the wisdom of Sayyidina Jabir. He's a young man. He says, he said that I have sisters that are young. I have sisters that are young and I'm responsible for them. So he's a brother and he understands that he has this ghira and that responsibility of looking after his sisters. How many of us have that? That level of actual care and attention towards your sisters. You probably don't even know what your sisters are up to. But having that level of protection, you say, I'm your older brother, have some respect for me. But you only want to say that when you want them to go and get your charger from upstairs. Or, give me the remote for the TV. That's when you you want to demand the Islamic authority of being the older brother. But as for giving them tarbiyah, caring for them, making dua, oh Allah, please make my sisters and my brothers good Muslims. Allow them to hold on to their salah. Actual care for them. Come with me, guys, let's go to salah together. Come with me, guys. All this stuff we don't do. So Sayyidina Jabir is giving us the best example. I have young sisters, Ya Rasulullah. And I did not want to get married to a woman who is young like them. Rather, I wanted to get married to an older woman so that she may look after them and discipline them. Are you guys seeing what's happening? Because there's so much to unpack from here. The maturity of Sayyidina Jabir. How thoughtful he is. And about him, Quranic ayat were revealed because of the fact that he had a lot of sisters. How does the inheritance, how is he distributed, and etc. But one more thing I want to add to this and take from here is that Sayyidina Jabir considered his family situation when he got married. So just a moment ago, I did tell you that, certain cultural barriers, we shouldn't let them hold us back. But taking into consideration family situation is also from the Sunnah. Someone says, I don't care about what my family says. I am my own man. I don't care what my family says. You have to care about what your family says as well, as long as their comments are shari'i. لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. If Allah has said something and your family is telling you to disobey that, then you're going to say, with all due respect, I don't have to follow this. If it's disobedience to Allah and His Rasul. But if they're telling you something which is in line with the Sharia, then you have to obey that. You have to respect that as well. You have to take heed to that. So these are things, brothers and sisters. Learn the hikmah, the wisdom, the kindness, the generosity, the wisdom from the Prophet ﷺ and his Sahaba. These are things that we should be taking from these ahadith. عن أبي صفوان سويد بن قيس قال جلبت أنا ومخرم العبدي بزا من هجر فجاءني النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فساومنا بسراويل وعندي وزان يزن بالأجر فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم للوزن زن وأرجح. Abu Safwan, Suwayd ibn Qais, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that Makhrama al-Abdi and I procured some drapery from Hajar and brought them to Mecca. The Prophet Muhammad came and bargained with us for some trousers, so we sold them to him. The Prophet buying from them some trousers. We had a person who weighed the cloth in order to fix the price. The Prophet said, weigh and add a little bit more to the price. Give a tip, give extra. This, my friends, is the example of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Read these ahadith, learn from them, be inspired by them, be ready to be remedied by them. We have so much to learn, subhanallah. I will stop up to here, inshallah, for today, because the next chapter is called the virtues of knowledge and seeking knowledge for the sake of Allah, and it's a slightly longer chapter. Hopefully, inshallah, azza wa jal, we'll cover that in one reading in our next week's lesson, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. Until now, are there any questions? Yes, sir.
For example, if I borrow some money from someone and I want to return it, if I give more, would it come up as interest?
Not necessarily. So if you borrow someone, money from someone, for example, they give you £100, khalas, when you give them back that money, you give the £100 back as a debt, but you're allowed to give separately a gift. But they can't demand that. It's a separate gift, an appreciation. You can buy them something, a jubba, or you can buy them a book or something, or even give them some money on top if you feel like this will be. Hadiyah is separate. There's no harm in that. But they can't demand that because where's my hadiyah now? There's no hadiyah anymore. That's interest. Any other questions? Yes, brother.
It's kind of Islamic finance related. Because I'm studying and I just want to ask.
Go ahead. I'll try my best. If I can't, then I'll say I don't know. Go ahead.
So recently I was studying, obviously mortgages like they're haram because the interest is like variable and they change to fixed rate all the time. So that's why you end up paying more, especially nowadays with cost of living. A lot of stuff has gone up. But one thing I was studying recently, and this is not for me, alhamdulillah, it's so good. And I'm a bit confused by this, is that a lot of car finances, which are PCP, HP, etc., they say because they have a fixed rate there and that price is guaranteed, Islam apparently does not look at the fact that it says interest there, just the idea, because apparently there's a hadith based on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam dealing with a Jewish man, and how if he pays later, he said guaranteed, but you're going to have to pay me more later on. So is it similar in that sense?
Yeah,
or
so this is a very good question, and it's a commonly asked question, and I've been meaning to address this for a long time, but I haven't yet got a chance to. So let's go for it. When it comes to finance, what are the types and if they're allowed? We can't cover all of them now, it's a short time, but what I will say is, interest, the word interest in English is not synonymous to usury. What we mean by riba in the Islamic sense, the Quranic sense, the Hadith sense, is not translated as interest all the time. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. The word interest, in order for it to be understood and for products to be comparable to other products, you would be required by a financial conduct authority and others that it's clear, that your product is clear. So a lot of the time, certain Islamic finance providers, whether it be Sharia compliant mortgages or otherwise, they would call it interest, but this word is problematic because we automatically think or take interest to mean riba and usury. The thing with PCP contracts and contracts where there is, for example, selling in installments, and because you're buying in installments, they charge you a bit more. Let's focus on that one. With this particular one, in Islamic transactions, there is something called bay'u bit-taqsit, selling in installments. Selling in installments. If I sell you a product cash, £100, fine, no problem, simple. But if you say to me, can I pay you in installments? Then me as a seller, I have a full Shari'i right to say, if you pay me, my brother, in installments, then I can't charge you £100. I will charge you a fixed amount, but scattered out. I'm not telling you that every month I'm going to increase it by a day, £1, 2, 3, no. I'm telling you, cash price £100. Installment price £110. This is jaiz. This is jaiz. Because of various ahadith, and this is accepted in Islamic law to be jaiz, that when you buy something in installments, you are allowed to pay more. And when the seller is selling something in installments, they are allowed to sell you for more, if it is indeed meant from that installment and not a way and a hila to charge you interest. So what's the difference? The difference is, like you said, it's a fixed rate. So I say to you, for example, buy this book for me, £10 now, but if you pay me in installments, you have to pay me £15, but this is fixed, spread it over 6 months. I can't now come and say to you, Ya akhi, your payment's been delayed by a month, give me £5 more per day. This is interest. أضعافا مضاعفة. This is not, it's haram, mutlaq, it's big, it's one of the biggest crimes to increase in that way. But if it's a fixed amount, but you just merely scattered the amount, and you're paying that fixed rate over a period of time, this is jaiz, there's no problem with that. This is called bay'u bit-taqsit. Anyone that has a problem with it, look up the masail of bay' bit-taqsit, buying or selling in installments. Simple issue. So here, then in that case, if your car that you're buying and it's in a finance product, and if it is meant from that it's in buying in installments, it's a higher price. So for example, you buy a car, cash is 30,000. But if you buy in installments, 35,000. It's fixed rate. You pay over 4 years. Balloon payment, 10K, whatever it is, right? There is a condition here. The condition is that the seller of the car, for argument's sake, and the finance provider is the same entity. Does that make sense to you? So for example, can I borrow someone? Someone come next to me. I just want to demonstrate for. Akhi, come next to me. Come sit next to me. I just want to demonstrate for the viewers as well what I mean. Are you okay with you on camera? Are you sure? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So here we have. What's your name, Akhi? Fahmid. Okay. Brilliant. So I am selling, suppose, this tablet. Okay? And what's your name, Akhi?
Samir.
Samir, come as well. Just for, we'll demonstrate for clarity, inshallah. You okay to be on camera? Okay, no problem. Just come see here as well. Okay. So Samir, you want to buy from me this tablet. Okay, I say to you, Akhi, give me cash. You say, no, I can't give you cash. I'll come every lesson of Riyadus Saliheen over 10 weeks. I'll pay you in installments. I say, okay, Akhi, look. If you pay me in installments, it can't be £100. It's going to be £110. Why? Because I'm going to give you the product. Okay, and I'm going to out of pocket for cash. And there is a risk I'm taking here. And all of that is mitigated, and also mainly because the hadith allow it, I'm allowed to charge you more. I can't ask you. So now you ask me, you say, £110, are you sure? Are you going to increase it? I will say, no. This is jaiz. So now, for example, you want to buy a BMW car. BMW car. You can only get finance from BMW Finance. Toyota car. You can only get it from Toyota Finance. Because the seller and the product is from the same entity. Why is that important? Because now suppose we didn't do that. Suppose I'm BMW. Okay? Now this guy, Fahmid, comes in. He speaks to me and says, guys, you're a dealership. My name is Santander. I'm a bank. I will provide you guys finance, and you pass the customers to me, and I'll deal with them, and I'll charge them a rate on top. So what's happening here is, this is no longer bay' bit taqsid. It's not paying in installments. What happened is, I have transferred that contract to this guy, and this guy is a bank. He's borrowing you the money to buy it, and then charging you more for that money itself. That's why it's absolutely imperative that when you do buy a car in finance, that it is done through such a way that the car seller and the finance provider are the same entity. Otherwise, you fall into the hand of the banks. So you have a load of finance companies out there. You know, so many. Sometimes on Auto Trader it says by Zuto or others. Santander, BNP Paribas, French banks, whatever, any other. Or these guys, the middlemen, if there is a situation like that, avoid it. Don't go into a finance. So the only time I would say in this country that you'd go for a finance for a car is either it's provided by a Sharia compliant finance provider, like for example, I think there is one called somewhere down Redbridge side, I forgot what it's called. But there's like these are Muslim guys, they run like a Sharia compliant model of it. Or the BMW or whatever car you buy is the finance provider and the car is from the same entity. And this is not just my words. If you want to refer to someone who's maybe more authoritative, you can refer to something called Islamic Center of Europe. They have a full webinar on this with senior sheikhs and finance experts, and this is known as well in any book of transactions, that when it's sell for installments, you're allowed to charge a bit more, but it has to be a fixed rate, and it has to be from the same person who's selling the product. That would be jaiz. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so just to add on, so the conditions that make sense. So for example, you're selling it to me, you're still the owner until I pay it off.
Yes.
So you know how some people, for example, they have the option to part exchange or sell it and then like obviously do that. That's not allowed, is it? Or is that?
No, part exchange literally means that you're telling me that instead of this is worth £100, you're telling me that my car is worth £10 or my book is worth £10. Reduce £10, it's fine. So what we've done is I've taken some of that money as your cash payment, and then the rest of it, we've scattered it as a installment payment. But it's still fine because some of it I've taken cash, you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to take some muqaddam, some early, some advance, some deposit, some as the first installment, and the rest of it you can scatter it out. But again, it has to be a fixed term, and it has to be from the same provider as the owner of the good. Does that make sense? I don't want to open the whole can of worms with Islamic finance and the Sharia compliant mortgages. That's a huge different beast, a different discussion for a different day. But it's not fair. It's not fair for people to just push them aside to say it's the same as any conventional mortgage, and they're merely charging the extra rates. Wallahu a'lam, because there are reliable scholars who are on those governing bodies and etc. And there are some rather sophisticated ways of how that is solved. But nonetheless, it's not the same. Sharia compliant mortgages are not the same. You guys hearing this? Sharia compliant mortgages are not the same as conventional mortgages. But anyway, that's a different discussion for a different day. In summary, how did this connect to our lesson today? Well, we are supposed to be generous and kind when it comes to transactions. And this brother asked a question he asked about giving a gift, and then he asked about car financing, etc. So inshallah, hopefully, this is clear. I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I've said. If you haven't understood something, rewind it. Go back to it. Go and listen to the webinar. Don't say this guy in the mosque is telling us that I can go, and tomorrow you're there like calling up all these finance companies saying, can I get finance from Barclays please, because I want to buy myself a nice I'm not saying about you, but generally some people love to intentionally misunderstand. So I'm making myself explicitly clear. Yes?
I've got a question, sorry. So you said, for example, let's say you buy a cash 30,000 and let's say 35,000 over 4 years, for example. Yeah. But what if, like, for example, in the contract it says if you're 1 day late over that 4 years, then we're going to charge you interest? That would
be problematic. So that's a contract you want to avoid. What they can say is that if you don't pay off your payments, then we'll take that car back and we'll sell it off to auction, and you will give you back whatever you owed and we'll keep. That is their haqq. But for them to multiply ad'af and mud'afat and increase for deferred payments and late, that's not jaiz. So you have to be very clear on what kind of contract you're signing. Okay, brothers? Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you so much for your time. Inshallah, we'll carry on next week. Subhanakallahumma ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Barakallahu feek.